Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about Inlexzo, also known as the Gemcitabine intravesical system, a groundbreaking new treatment that's just hit the market and is poised to change the game for certain patients battling bladder cancer, that common malignancy originating in the lining of the bladder organ. If you're curious about cutting-edge oncology, which is the branch of medicine focused on cancer diagnosis and treatment, intrigued by how innovative drug delivery systems are tackling tough diseases, or just want to learn about the latest approvals from the United States Food and Drug Administration, also known as the FDA, which is the regulatory body overseeing drug safety and efficacy in medical technology, you're in for a real treat because Inlexzo isn't your typical chemotherapy. It's a smart, targeted intravesical system that delivers gemcitabine, a nucleoside metabolic inhibitor that mimics DNA building blocks to disrupt cancer cell replication directly into the bladder over an extended period, offering a bladder-sparing option for folks who haven't responded to standard treatments. Developed by Janssen Biotech, a Johnson & Johnson company, this therapy was approved by the FDA just 5 days ago, on September 9, 2025, and it's already generating buzz as a potential practice-changing option for non-muscle invasive bladder cancer, also known as NMIBC, which refers to cancer that hasn't spread into the deeper muscle layers of the bladder wall. Patients. From its game-changing capabilities to its clinical results, dosing, side effects, and some fun facts that'll make you appreciate this innovation, we'll unpack everything about Inlexzo, including how it works to fight carcinoma in situ, also known as CIS, which is a flat, high-grade form of bladder cancer confined to the surface layer, and why it's a beacon of hope for those facing limited options. Inlexzo's capabilities are what make it such an exciting advancement in bladder cancer treatment, specifically tailored for adult patients with Bacillus Calmette-Guérin unresponsive, non-muscle invasive bladder cancer with carcinoma in situ, with or without papillary tumors, which are finger-like projections of cancer cells, meaning it's designed for those high-risk cases where the cancer hasn't invaded the muscle layer of the bladder but hasn't responded to BCG therapy, the standard intravesical immunotherapy using a weakened bacteria strain to stimulate immune response against cancer cells, and where surgery like radical cystectomy, which is the complete removal of the bladder, might be the next step but isn't always feasible or desired due to patient health, age, or preferences. What sets Inlexzo apart is its unique intravesical drug-releasing system. It's a single-use device that slowly releases 225 milligrams of gemcitabine, the nucleoside metabolic inhibitor I mentioned earlier, directly into the bladder over a 3-week period per cycle, providing continuous localized exposure to the chemotherapy without the need for repeated catheter insertions or general anesthesia. This extended release mechanism allows gemcitabine to target cancer cells more effectively by disrupting their deoxyribonucleic acid synthesis, also known as DNA synthesis, which is the process of copying genetic material during cell division. Gemcitabine gets converted into active forms that block key enzymes needed for DNA building blocks and incorporates into the DNA itself, causing cell death through a process called self-potentiation, which enhances its anti-cancer punch. Inlexzo minimizes systemic exposure, focusing the drug right where it's needed in the bladder mucosa, which is the inner lining of the bladder, to achieve high local concentrations that kill abnormal cells while sparing healthy tissues elsewhere, unlike traditional systemic chemotherapy, which can affect the whole body and cause widespread side effects. Clinical data from the pivotal Sunrise-1 trial showed an impressive 82% complete response rate, meaning no detectable cancer after treatment, in patients with BCG unresponsive NMIBC with CIS, with 51% maintaining that response for at least 1 year, and the median duration of response stretching to 16.4 months, highlighting its potential to delay or avoid cystectomy and improve quality of life. This capability is particularly valuable for patients who are ineligible for or refuse bladder removal, offering a non-surgical, outpatient-friendly option that could transform management of this aggressive form of bladder cancer, which affects thousands annually and has seen limited progress in treatments for over 40 years. Let's dive into the technical aspects and how Inlexo works in practice, because this system's design is a clever fusion of drug delivery innovation and oncology science. Gemcitabine, the active ingredient, is a pyrimidine antimetabolite, a type of chemotherapy that interferes with nucleic acid metabolism to halt cell growth, that mimics a natural DNA building block, fooling cancer cells into incorporating it during replication, which stalls the process and triggers cell death. Essentially, it starves the tumor of the tools it needs to grow. Inlexo takes this a step further by packaging the drug into a sterile, single-dose intravesical system that's co-packaged with a urinary catheter and stylet for easy insertion by a healthcare provider in an outpatient setting, taking just a few minutes without the need for sedation or extended monitoring. Once inserted through the urethra, which is the tube carrying urine from the bladder to outside the body, into the bladder, the device remains in place for 3 weeks, slowly releasing the full 225 milligrams of gemcitabine directly onto the bladder lining, which maximizes contact with CIS and papillary tumors while reducing the risk of the drug being diluted or flushed out too quickly, as happens with standard one-time installations. The dosing regimen is straightforward. It's inserted every 3 weeks for the first 6 months, up to 8 doses, followed by every 12 weeks for up to 18 months, 6 more doses, or until disease progression, recurrence, or unacceptable toxicity, totaling up to 14 cycles. This schedule allows for sustained therapy that keeps gemcitabine levels therapeutic in the bladder over time, with removal also done outpatient after 3 weeks. The system's safety profile is bolstered by its localized delivery, but it comes with warnings. It shouldn't be used in patients with a perforated bladder or compromised mucosa, as that could lead to dangerous systemic exposure and severe reactions like bone marrow suppression, which is a decrease in blood cell production leading to anemia or infections or organ damage. Embryo-fetal toxicity, which is harm to a developing fetus, is another key concern. Based on animal studies, gemcitabine can cause birth defects if systemic exposure occurs during pregnancy, so it's contraindicated for pregnant women, and patients are advised to use effective contraception. Common side effects include urinary tract infections, hematuria, which is blood in the urine, urinary pain, and fatigue, with serious adverse reactions like pneumonia or severe infections occurring in about 24% of trial patients. But overall, the localized approach seems to keep systemic issues lower than intravenous gemcitabine. Fun fact, Inlexo was formerly known as TAR-200 during development, a codename for its targeted release system, and its approval marks the first intravesical system of its kind for extended gemcitabine release, potentially setting the stage for similar tech in other cancers, like using it for localized treatments in the prostate or kidneys. Another quirky tidbit, the 3-week dwell time in the bladder means patients might feel a slight fullness or occasional twinge, but it's generally well tolerated, allowing normal activities like work or exercise, which is a huge win over hospital-bound chemo sessions. The operational flow for Inlexo in a clinical setting is patient-friendly and efficient, starting with a transurethral resection of the bladder tumor, also known as TURBT, which is a surgical procedure to remove visible cancer through the urethra. To remove visible cancer, followed by confirmation of BCG unresponsiveness. A urologist or oncologist then inserts the device via catheter in the office. No hospital stay required, where it floats in the bladder, releasing gemcitabine steadily over 3 weeks to bathe the tissue in the drug. Patients might feel some discomfort like urgency or mild pain during this time, but can go about daily activities with follow-up cystoscopy, which is an endoscopic examination of the bladder, every 3 months to check response. If a complete response is achieved, no cancer detected, the treatment continues as maintenance to prevent recurrence, with the device's removal being a quick procedure. This cycle repeats, monitored by urine cytology, which is testing urine for cancer cells, and biopsies as needed, offering a less invasive alternative to weekly BCG installations that often cause flu-like symptoms or bladder irritation. The Sunrise 1 Phase 2b trial, a single-arm, open-label study with 83 patients, backed this up with its high response rates and durability, showing that 82% hit complete response within 3 months, and the treatment was well tolerated overall, with only a small subset needing to stop due to toxicity. The latest news as of September 14th, 2025, is all about Inlexo's fresh FDA approval and the ripple effects it's causing in the oncology world. Just 5 days ago on September 9th, Johnson & Johnson announced the green light from the FDA, hailing it as a potentially practice-changing therapy for BCG unresponsive NMIBC with CIS, based on the Sunrise-1 data that showed strong efficacy without the need for reinduction in most responders. This approval comes at a critical time, as BCG shortages have plagued treatments for years, and Inlexo fills a gap for patients facing cystectomy as their only option. Experts like Dr. Bacillus Calmette, a leading urologic oncologist, noted in the press release that it could help many avoid life-altering surgery. Janssen is ramping up manufacturing and distribution, with the drug now available through authorized specialty distributors, and they've introduced up to 120-day extended payment terms to ease reimbursement while awaiting a permanent J-code from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, also known as CMS, which is the federal agency managing health insurance programs from CMS. Clinical interest is high, with ongoing trials like Sunrise-2 exploring combinations with other therapies, and posts on X from oncology influencers on September 10th highlighted the 82% response rate as a breakthrough for high-risk NMIBC. No major side effect surprises have emerged post-approval, but providers are reminded to screen for bladder integrity before insertion to avoid risks. Fun fact, the name Inlexo might derive from intrabladder, or a branded twist on Gemcitabine, but it's the first of its kind for extended local delivery, potentially inspiring similar systems for other intravesical therapies. Another cool tidbit, the outpatient insertion means patients can drive home the same day, making it far more convenient than hospital-based chemo sessions. Inlexo represents a revolutionary step forward in bladder cancer care, offering targeted extended-release therapy that could spare bladders and extend remissions for those with BCG-unresponsive NMIBC, backed by solid trial data and a straightforward administration profile. So, what do you all think about Inlexo? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, give this video a like if you enjoyed it, share it with your friends who love medical breakthroughs. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into the treatments and tech shaping health and beyond. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.